I don't like that they do this now in MLB games with this. Like, they have the low depth of field thing too, so it looks like super shallow.
What
and
those
cinematic.
those super HD cameras that look like
Yeah.
video
The
games?
World Cup slow-mos.
Yeah.
Like, especially when they have like the pitcher walk-ups and it's just like following them with a dolly shot of some guy with a steady cam. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
I feel like the clips I've seen that are most uncanny are like from NFL. Those are the ones where it actually looks like.
Yeah,
Well, that was the one where they debuted like during COVID when we were already like not used to seeing any sports footage whatsoever, and then they dropped that on us. And it's like, whoa, not
They
ready.
made the Madden game a real game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baseball, I don't mind it as much. Really, you can say anything, and if it's a comparison between baseball and football, I'll be like, yeah, I think baseball.
Baseball
Doesn't
does
matter.
suit itself to like cinema more, of course, than football.
America really lost its soul once it started playing football, the Devil's Game.
Well, once boxing stopped being the most popular sport.
Yeah,
Horse racing.
Simple as. Hey, what's the commissioner's name? I don't know.
Goodell, yeah.
Yeah, simple. Vote labor, love baseball, hate Roger Goodell. Simple as.
Our country.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably do the intro again since we
Yeah.
careened off.
It's Alex!
It is episode 259 of You from 202. After 3 games, we just watched it. It was a loss, it was a win, and then another win. 2 wins. A loss to Chicago at home, and a win away at Cincinnati.
2 points a game.
It was all pretty like crazy and stressful, but thankfully the season's over, so we
Yeah.
didn't really have to sweat that.
And a win against Toronto to close it out. And we're approaching the end of the season. We're coming to you from the interminable international break. Because what's even is it
This was not even. I guess it was qualifiers in some continents, but
Yeah.
at least for the U.S., it was not even like Nations League or whatever. They're just playing old ass, traditional ass friendlies
Who do we play?
for money. Germany and
Oh, that's right. Pulisic scored against Germany. He's been tearing it up
I don't-
lately.
I don't follow
Yeah, because we're
USMNT on football anymore. So I
they're
have to
just
kind of-
going. We're not even doing qualifiers, right? For the next World Cup.
For the US.
Oh, they're playing Ghana right now
Oh,
as we record. So
wow.
That's
Oh, somebody got a little nostalgic.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Germany
Speaking-
and Ghana.
Speaking of Ghana, if you're on Twitter, give Asamoah Gyan a follow. He's been one of the highlights of my Twitter experience
Oh, yeah.
the last few weeks. He apparently lives in Tampa now, and is just like doing little like kid events for the Rowdies and shit, and like being super candid about like old Ghana national team stuff. And he's just a very fun presence on Twitter, which kind of caught me off guard.
Well, I'm going to Tampa at the top of November.
Go hang out with
I was
Asamoah.
gonna say maybe I'll schedule something.
Why did he pick Tampa? Does he like work for the Rowdies, or it's just a side gig?
It looks like he's just hanging out there now. He's just like, I don't know.
Having been to Tampa, there are people who like
He
definitely
wants-
fit Tampa vibes.
He wants to raise some baseball players.
I could see that it's like an Eastbound and Down side plot or something. I just really wanted to like have a Ski-Doo dealership. But
Ooh, that's
the dream.
careful because that's part of Gian's backstory too.
Really?
He was accused of. So he was on a jet ski vacation with one of the most famous rappers in Ghana, and the rapper went missing while he was on vacation
Oh.
with Asamoah. And Asamoah was accused of like doing witchcraft on him. Legit, that was like the biggest scandal news story in Ghana for like years. But looks like he beat the rap, or maybe he didn't. That's why he's in Tampa now. But who
Would
knows?
be a place to go.
So when he walks along the Tampa boardwalk and he sees the fish, they start talking to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I see. Well, there's your media recommendation already. It is the week. Is it the week before the Red Bulls' last game of the season, or is that next week? I don't know. It's the penultimate.
It might not be the last game of the season.
Yeah, week of the season for us. Although, as Cork mentioned earlier, the season has ended, so we are kind of just vibing here. But yeah, 3 games to catch up with here. A little bit of, well, not proper news, but some rumbles about coaching decision, which at least serves for conversation fodder to talk about that. Where should we start? First off is Chicago, I guess. Chicago at home. This was a 1-0 loss. I wasn't able to make it to this game, but I did see. I did visually perceive it with my eyes, much to my regret. Because I have to say, just revisiting it now again, this Chicago Kids, woof, and in combination with the hip hop kits, not a great look. Are we gonna keep the hip hop kits for like next year? Is this gonna be like a full 2-year rotation?
Probably.
Do third kits go like that? I'm trying to think about that.
I mean, isn't this the first time they're doing full third kits?
For
previously,
us,
it's just
for
like
sure.
league-wide promo stuff for like Parley and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
This time there was also a few teams. That
Well, I'm
did
trying to think of
third
like
kits,
Seattle and
so-
Portland, who always seem to have a third kit. You know.
I think that was more normal though. I mean, like
Right.
that was part of their normal programming. Ours is just like a thing we introduced halfway through the season.
But other teams were introducing halfway too. I mean, every team. I don't think any teams had third jerseys before this year. I think that was part of like either the last Adidas deal or even like the Apple deal. It was just like, oh, there's going to be money for third jerseys now. Like, okay.
So we might go
The important things.
We might go out or go without a red kit next year. Then, right? That's on the chopping block, right?
Well, maybe.
'Cause
I
it'd
mean,
be-
I think it
it's-
might just be that we will just have 3 kits. For
Yeah.
however
Right,
long
but
this
this
cycle
year we
is.
would have the P kits and then the hip hop kits. So then
next year.
next
there's
year,
going to be a new red
yeah.
kit, hopefully. But we'll see.
Yeah, it's like a pink kit.
yeah, right.
I mean, there's
completely off.
I mean, there's a special edition kit every other week now, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
If there's a special edition like kits that the entire league wears that clash with actual teams' colors, and it's just part of the whole kind of ennui going on around the league lately.
You say this as I wear my camouflage training kit that I bought.
Oh yeah. I have some of them. Well, I mean, the training kits and like the warm up kits are one thing, but I'm talking about like there's actual jerseys like just all the time now that just I don't know.
Parley was like
It's cheap and
kind of the
cheesy,
start of
it's
it.
tacky.
I regret being part of the problem with the Parley jerseys.
It's the kit that I wear the most now. I think.
The silver ones from that one year were pretty sick. I mean, I still have one of those too, but
Yeah, the dark ones.
but yeah, these ones that
Well, I think
they're just
that-
making them like turquoise every year now.
I think that gave whoever was looking at the numbers the idea that, if we have a good selling, like, relatively black kit every year, we can sell it, you know? And that's kind of been the case ever since.
Yeah. Well, we should just announce that. And I don't want to even go with that line of thought. I take it back. Whenever we can get an Eric Adams themed kit.
Yeah, right?
That would move a
On the neck it says
Zero Bond.
Waiters at the table of my success.
the Table of Success FC.
Yeah. Maybe NYCFC will announce when as they start going through their rezoning process. That's certifying on Monday, unfortunately.
There's gonna be a
Monday.
statue of Eric in front of the stadium.
Well, 1-0 loss. The story. What's the story of this match? For me, one of the stories of this match is that Hassan Dunn was starting at center back.
And then suddenly was not playing at center back.
Yeah,
Well,
what
it
happened
was
to him? What happened there? Where'd he go?
It did take him, 60
minutes? Yeah.
So, he made it 60 minutes without getting sent off.
Was Reyes out for this game, right?
Yeah, he was suspended.
No, Reyes is playing.
Oh, right.
Oh, Neil is
Neil is
suspended.
suspended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember after this game, because I just don't know if a lot of it's really worth talking about, but I just remember thinking after this game, oh yeah, season's over for sure now. But, I guess as we'll go on later to find out, being this low on the table means that there's a lot
Yeah, the
of...
season's never over in MLS anymore.
Yeah, there's so much...
It's so much fun, isn't it?
I mean, it is I guess if you put yourself in a position to care, it is stressful, but...
But, I mean, I don't know. Is it though? I think like
It makes everything into a fog for me.
I think
honestly.
it's made it
because it was like a thing. I mean, you can. I mean, the broadcasters were all just like a must-win game. They have to get a result here, and then
right.
they didn't. That's just not how it works anymore. In this
Yeah,
thing.
putting it up to 9 slots, and I think I said this in our last episode last month or whatever. Like, putting it up to 9 does make it so there really has not been a must-win week until the last week of the season. Which I get how the suits, or I should say, I guess the vests, the Patagonia vests, think that's compelling, or like how they can see it that way.
I mean, it's just extra playoff games, extra inventory for Apple to sell.
Yeah, but it's made it so we've had this interminable part of the season,
right?
Where it's been like 3 months, where us and like 4 or 5 other teams have basically been like, okay, yeah, this season sucks, but like not had any closure. And this Chicago game, I think, was a good example.
Right.
Because was Chicago's season resuscitated by this? I don't know.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Definitely. That and then the Miami game. It was like right after that.
But yeah, they're still below us at the table, though. I mean, I guess it gives them a fighting chance. But that's another... I'll probably be griping about the playoff spots, the proliferation of them throughout this episode. Because it's sort of ridiculous. Like, it's been hard to call anything a must-win game for the last month, because it genuinely hasn't been, even though we've been at the bottom of the table.
Right. Well, I guess like there hasn't been a high stakes game, but there's been a medium stakes feeling the entire time.
Right. It's made it so like, I don't know.
It's just kind of
I'll worry about it tomorrow.
A slog.
I'll worry about it tomorrow.
Yeah. It doesn't suit procrastinators.
No. It was very poetic that literally on the foul that he got sent off on the second yellow, they converted. Because it wasn't even that dangerous of a chance. It was
a regular set piece.
over by the sideline. So it just kind of felt like kismet, I suppose.
Also, it felt like we should have gotten our business dealt with before that.
We did look like a better team.
Well, I mean, yeah, Chicago didn't really have anything, and they didn't really, they only got, that one chance, and they didn't really produce much in the end. But I was mentioning while we were talking before the show how it was a game where, like, watching Chicago in that game, it reminded me of when I would watch Cincinnati during their first couple of years when they were an expansion team. And they were obviously just terrible, like bottom of the league, not winning any games, but you would actually watch them, and maybe this was just against the Red Bulls, who knows, but you would watch them in games, and you would see so many moments where they looked like such a fluent, well-rehearsed team. And it's just like, how is this not resulting in goals and wins? And that was kind of what I saw with Chicago the other night, where it was just like, I mean, and again, this is another thing where it might just be, both when you're playing against Red Bulls and they're putting so much space in behind, or giving you so much space in behind with the pressing, and when you watch Red Bulls week in, week out like us, you're not used to seeing very, good possession or good passing. So anybody looks good doing that when you see them. But it was genuinely a thing where, like, I thought Chicago looked like a very kind of sound, fluent team, and yet, you look at the stat sheet by the end of it, and they only had that one chance, and they didn't really produce much. So, just I don't know, just another kind of little rejoinder onto our kind of big picture conversation a few episodes about how just bad MLS teams look different than they did, 10, 15 years ago, and a lot of times it's that they look better than they did 10, 15 years ago, but, it just doesn't matter as much because the league is, just changed. So
the defense
just
is
weird.
tighter.
And that just adds to just, the weirdness of the last couple of years, and especially this season where, we've just been trudging at the bottom of the table, mostly having to scrounge for our results against these types of teams. So.
Yeah. And, other than Ndom, this really kind of was a first choice squad, which, one sub narrative of the season since Lassane took over is that it has become slightly more possible to figure out, what our main squad is.
Yeah,
here.
they've stuck with the formation. They've stuck with a general set of personnel, and that moves the needle a decent amount. Even if you're not, making any headway tactically, just letting a team gel is half the battle in a sport like soccer, which the previous manager who, thought it was, a video game did not really grasp.
Yeah. Leading the line in this game for us, just to jog our memory, is Elias Manuel and Tom Barlow. Of course, you'll remember Dante Van Zer has done his foot for the season. What was it again?
It was
Lumbar.
Oh, that's back.
Yeah.
Right. So they started the line. Then we had Omir and Luquinhas, and then Frankie Mai and Daniel Edelman. So it's kind of the core group there, and Duncan was playing at right back rather than Harper. But the other thing of note, I guess, is that we're chasing this game, and as we said, it was sort of like heavily air quote must win, sort of 6-pointer. Down 10 minutes left, and we actually do sub on for the first time Julian Hall, 15-year-old, which was a bit odd.
Forgot we did that.
Yeah, I did too until reviewing this. It was also a bit odd for me to be watching it while, because I was filming the game while I was working. I was working that weekend, so I was kind of like going in and out and like getting updates through my phone, and so obviously I saw we were down in this situation, and I was actually really confused when we brought him on. And then afterwards, I saw sort of all the posts from like the team and everything that was taking a sort of very pat on the back approach to this, and I was very confused by this tone because I was like, is this supposed to be a game we're chasing, or is this supposed to be like us subbing someone on to get the minutes in a comfortable win? What was happening here? It was very, very confused moment, both from the sporting decision by Lassane and by the communications apparatus of the club to make that sort of the focus, even though this was kind of a pretty chilling loss for this season's aspirations.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of I don't think it's a trophy. I don't think it's a trophy they won that they had to sign this guy and give him minutes immediately because Chelsea was hovering over him, apparently. That's the story, is that, we had to put a contract in front of him or else he was going to sign with Chelsea. And it's just like, like the context you just put in, Brit, like when that's a game that we have to chase for the actual, present practical reasons to win the game and get to the playoffs, and instead we're, giving out favors for youth prospects.
Right.
Just all it's salad. I mean, let me just preface by saying that it's salad, and what we mean by salad, if you've forgotten that sort of framework that we put it together in the early part of the season. It's just none of these little gestures and little things here and there are things that happen to a club that's doing well. These are all just, there's all these like little bells and whistles and little moments and little events that we're supposed to be kind of like cherishing or revering over the course of the season that like doesn't make any sense. Like there's a very different context where a player like Hall, and I won't go sidebar there, but that a player like Hall, a 15-year-old being thrown into a game is supposed to be kind of like a victory cigar move, or something that a club that's doing so well with the first team that they can just kind of take liberty with prospects like that. That's something that good, successful teams get to do. That's a privilege that they get. It's not something that you get to treat as some kind of achievement when your team is in last place and you're just doing like Machiavellian like speculation for 15-year-olds. I mean, and then now I will sidebar that obviously Red Bull's not the only team to do it, although Red Bull soccer as a whole has been a major contributor to this dynamic across all of soccer, but particularly in the U.S. there seems to be kind of a literal race to the bottom now, where teams are just giving contracts to younger and younger players just to get some social media and press hits for like a week or two. and it doesn't really amount to anything on the field. I mean, there's that guy in Sacramento who I guess was, he's like 13, who I guess, Red Bulls was trying to get to. There was a moment where San Jose a couple of years ago was like announcing a new 14-year-old every week. It's just like, I guess the benefits, like I just said, the artificial benefits for, just buzz and stuff are what they are, and that's all that matters in this league is buzz these days. But I feel like a more serious league with more dignity would not be allowing literal children to be put forward as a stunt like that. Very weird.
As you lay this out, and it's also because we've got baseball on the TV and on mute, it's like, maybe the next wave of scouting moves will be teams signing like 20-year-olds that like are actually pretty good instead of like 14-year-olds and playing them, because a big move, of the savvy, well-loved team, the Houston Astros, has been to sign international prospects who are like 20 instead of 16, which is normally what they do, and they just found these guys that slipped through the cracks because like the scouting consensus became that you had to buy these international free agents when they were like 12. Yeah. And then once you turned, whatever, it was like, forget it. So maybe that's coming in soccer. Because it's, to your point, I'm no longer impressed, but also like I don't even bat an eye when there's like 16-year-olds who play. Yeah. It happens so often.
I mean, it's just, and we don't need to go into like a, broader thing about this, but yeah, just the entire sport of soccer in the last few years, and part of why, some of us on this show, and I am speaking for myself only though, are kind of black-pilled about the sport in general as opposed to just MLS or just the Red Bulls, is that it's just like a giant transfer speculation casino now. Everybody's just trying to buy the newest hot shit, and they don't have to be proven at all. It's just a giant, betting game, and it's just nobody's actually building teams anymore, and it's just all very I don't get how anybody's really that compelled by it.
It's like when I was 16, Jack Wilshere was 16 playing for Arsenal, and like that was big and hype at the moment, but he was also not even the latest thing. Like, Stats get done it before. Freddie Adu had played as a teenager when I was like 12 years old or something, and back then this was very wow, but now there's been like 10 years for us to get used to this. Yeah, I know there's examples probably even further back of teenagers playing, and the novelty's worn off, even from that standpoint. I mean, I feel like we've also had this moment of like youngest player ever at this club several times. Tyler Adams was
remember Bento Estrella?
Wow. Has he played?
Yes, he was with RB2 for a little bit.
Serge Ngoma.
I've not heard his name for a while.
Key to all this.
Yeah. He's apparently playable-ish, maybe.
He's the key to all this.
He is. Well, I was also going to say that was just a bad game moment to put, like, some of that.
Yeah, I mean, purely.
I'm not on it because it's a confluence of both.
Right, and it's also like, we had two good examples of games where he probably could have gotten some good garbage time minutes in a winning condition instead, right? Where
that
right
makes
after,
it
so that like the contrast is a lot more apparent to me, because it's like, oh hey, why not put him in against like really shitty Toronto so he doesn't lose his confidence as a young attacking player or something like that, right? Instead of what we ended up seeing.
Well, and just the Ngoma thing, just to launch into another just rant for a minute. I mean, the Ngoma thing, and just like, with the second that was mentioned earlier today, everybody was like, oh my God, like Ngoma's back. And it's just like, there's such a dissonance for me, and just such a disconnect between, the constant premise is just like, oh, fucking Red Bulls, they're just all cheap players, and they just want to have young kids, and it's all cheap. But then when you see the youngest, cheapest kid to get his name mentioned, everybody's like, oh my God, he's my hero, he's my favorite. It's just like, that's like the broadest possible contradiction that I struggle with ever since, or not ever since, but just in the last, this era of following this team since, I guess, 2015. That's just such a disconnect for me, and I just don't understand how people actually do it, but whatever.
Yeah.
Good thing the club's dead.
Yeah. The next game was a 2-1 win at Cincinnati, which is also an interesting bookmark, because I think this is the first time that we've really gone into Cincinnati's plays when they've been in this stretch of being properly good. I mean, I guess, yeah, because the time they beat us in the playoffs last year, that was at our stadium, right? And for me, it was kind of funny because I forgot how much they don't like us because we were sort of their boogeyman.
Long time resentment.
Apparently so.
Right, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
all through Luquinhas and Amaya.
Yeah,
who
they're
they just
salty
couldn't
about
hate
Amaya,
more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like the Open Cup semifinal is like a great comeback memory for the Red Bulls, but it being Cincinnati is only a very minor part of that for us. But yeah, there was a particular vibe to this game. I guess also the context was that Cincinnati had an opportunity to break the points record, which is wild. Yeah, because it's just
That team, really?
yeah, or I don't know. It's just it doesn't feel like anything historic has been happening this season.
Yeah.
But they were also prudently resting a lot of their players. Costa didn't start. Their big star central midfielder, and how do you say his name? Nuduovo.
Yeah.
Wasn't starting. Or no, he came out at the half, I should say. He did start. Miazga also came out at the half.
Vasquez didn't start.
Right, Vasquez did not start. So they were playing a reduced strength side, but it seemed like the crowd at least wanted to break that points record. But hey, the Rebels did jump up on them.
Yeah, I mean, just while we're on the topic, and just to piggyback on what we said earlier about continuity in lineups and personnel. I mean, exhibit right there of literally the best team in the league, just been dominating. They, break the continuity and rest some of their players, and immediately they get smacked around by, let's be honest, one of the worst teams in the league, us. Yeah, so, proof in the pudding right there.
I did do a bit of a spoonerism. I swapped the syllables in Bodo's name. My apologies. But yeah, Frankie had a very cool taken goal. Really liked the way he's been playing recently, and then we doubled up with Elias Manuel. What do you call that? It kind of feels like a toe poke, but not really. It's kind of a funny little contact that he made, but a solid redirection.
Yeah, it was not orthodox. It was not like. It was not proof that he's like learning how to be a striker necessarily, unless you wanted to be like, the most like unorthodox like Pippo Inzaghi goal hanger like that. But yeah, as far as being like a full on refined, technical winger turned striker like he's supposed to be, I mean, it's still fine that he scored, but it's just that's not the kind of goal that guy is supposed to be scoring.
But hey, maybe it's one of those things where like he didn't really have the opportunity to think, and that's why he was able to do it.
Yeah, I mean that's the art sometimes. So,
yeah. And then we got an exciting little back and forth where we had a not called handball on Andres Reyes. And then we go up, and Manuel scores what would be our third, but then they call it off.
The coolest goal of Manuel's career.
Yeah, and he was probably pretty disappointed about this. Because then they go back and they look at it, and it was a handball on Andres Reyes. So they go back and they get the penalty, and that's happened a couple times in this era of VAR, but kind of novel to see it happen to the Red Bulls. I have to say, though, that I really suspect that the Honorable Chris Penso probably would have called that a handball in real time if VAR didn't exist. And, regular viewers will not be surprised by this, but I kind of prefer the version of the sport where that just gets called immediately.
Yeah.
What's going on with this? And maybe, with the Tottenham Liverpool incident, maybe we're approaching critical mass here on feeling kind of fed up with this. I think we talked about this last episode as well, though. But for that brief moment where you're thrown 3-0 up, and it kind of felt nice to be just sort of opportune, I think is the word for this match. I think dare I say that across these 3 matches we played that we're talking about this episode, Luquinhas, I think, has been growing into his game a bit. I think this is a good example of that.
I think it's kind of a thing, though, where he's growing into his position, but his role, I should say, where, the way this 4-2-2 works, he ends up being the creative focal point most of the time, if only because he's the guy who can do the most and, just cover the most ground when he gets the ball. Because there's nobody, designated to the center, so the wingers have to move in to be able to create, and he's the most adept at doing that. But at the same time, I think there's other players with other skill sets that are much better suited to doing that than Luquinhas, if that makes sense.
I agree with you, but I also think that, to your point, Luquinhas has grown into...
Not in the Red Bulls team, I should say.
Right.
I mean, theoretical, we should buy an
someone
actual Italian
yeah.
midfielder, but go ahead.
But I also think, Luquinhas has grown a little bit into this role where maybe, sometimes the way he's positioning himself, it's just, suiting the way his skill sets are, he's actually being able to create some space a little bit more, he's able to dribble a little bit more, even to, the technical ability to... His passes being weighted a lot better right now, I think just speaks better to maybe what you're saying, Cork, having this continuity now in this team for now, 15-ish games, this lineup hasn't really changed that much, right? Maybe that's really what we needed to start building any kind of attacking flow at all. Not only do I think that Luquinhas has been better at just linking together play, but I think we've noticed an extreme improvement in Kyle Duncan's play as a fullback, because I think the way that he's been contributing, the way that he's been stepping in has actually been really impressive. Unfortunately he's also a lone player, but you're right that it's it's this overall hey, if we were playing these guys together for the past 3 years the way we've been having them, and even if Patrick Klimala were having these chances, maybe we would look a lot different in 2023 as an organization overall, rather than just peering in, relying on results to get into playoffs and other things like that, right?
Yeah, I will say I've been apologist for a bit of an apologist for Luquinhas as well. I always thought that his game was he was performing worse than he would have otherwise due to the way that the Stroop are setting up the team. I think it's maybe just a regression to the mean here.
Yeah.
Some people were ragging on some friends of ours, I will say. I won't just attribute it to the anonymous masses. I'll attribute it to anonymous friends of ours. We're saying, oh, look at, look how bad his weighted passes are and everything. It's I don't know. I think the guy still knows how to make passes in the right context. We just weren't building those contexts.
That's not
I think we're seeing that more. I mean, I don't know. I think he's still an all right player. I agree with Cork that we do still need the somebody with more gravity, for sure. But I think and especially if we can get Morgan back healthy again, we can get a big good step forward. But this Cincinnati game, I guess it was also nice to see somebody else losing their head a little bit. Cincinnati got a little bit heated. I was actually wondering whether they were going to really push to the end, how much this points record really mattered to them. But the guys on the pitch seemed to want it, which I guess is a credit to Pat Noonan, that his whole squad is hungry. But pleasantly surprised that we were able to hold on as well. Also, Frankie did not celebrate when he scored, which I didn't think twice about. I actually forgot that he used to play there, But some people interpret it as maybe a former club thing. I think he just never celebrates goals, which I really like. And
Yeah.
most of the time he scores, it's also in a context where it's all right, let's keep going.
Yeah, he's pretty poker faced on the field, which is I also like that. I think you take what you can get with this team as far as maturity, since there's nobody's over 24, but that's kind of refreshing kind of personality thing to see on the field. That he's never over or under keeled, and I think that's, it's not for everybody. I mean, everybody has their preference of how they approach, the game temperamentally, but I think he seems pretty confident and in control in his body language on the field, and I think that's an interesting thing and something worth noting, as you guys just did.
Yeah, like a good temperament.
Yeah.
Real.
If there is, if you have to give like an MVP for this, mess of the season, or like, most outstanding player, whatever you want to call it, I wouldn't have, I can't really think of anybody other than Amaya who really deserves it, to be honest.
He's really kind of
Coronel, but I mean, that's whenever a team's, not very good at scoring, you're just going to say the keeper was good. So.
Right. Amaya's kind of the guy I always see on the pitch who gives me that, like, veteran leadership, like, temperament when I see him play.
Yeah, just somebody guy who's played long enough, not that long, but long enough to know what kind of player.
Knows where the line is, knows how to ride it, knows not to cross it.
Knows his own limitations.
Right, exactly.
Frankie was my player of the season last year too, until somebody. Was it Cornell who became the consensus?
Morgan,
yeah, it was Morgan. Became our consensus instead.
Who?
Right. But
he loved. There's like a flag that VA gave him, and he was just like carrying.
Morgan?
Yeah, Lewis Morgan. After the game on against Toronto,
a flag. What kind of flag?
It was something Scottish.
Gonna need a few more details.
But I think it's,
I'm not. That's not enough for me to just call it cool.
I know. The vibes were similar to kind of like the Gareth Bale Wales golf Real Madrid thing.
Hold the fort.
Yeah, I'm not.
It was
I'm not quite ready to.
It just said rested and ready
this.
back for 2024, and then something. I think. Anyway, he enjoyed it.
We're gonna send this for further review. Final note, I'll say, we already kind of hit this note with the communications for the match before this, but this is also a weird one where, like, it was a good win and everything, but then the vibe and the posts after it were just, like, really celebratory of, like, oh, crash their party, and Eric had a very good quote tweet where it's like, the team as of late is just had an uncanny ability to get the vibe and tone precisely wrong consistently. And I know I've been getting stuck in on this the last couple episodes, but I think they deserve it. It's been consistently off and weird and a little embarrassing. It's like a bottom of the table team going into literal Shield winners, and like you should be like proud of the result, but not acting like you just won the World Cup or anything. Like this club should be where Cincinnati is now and was there not too long ago. So to be like trying to thumb at their noses up when we should be eating a little bit more humble pie is really an unforced error and just makes it seem like we were all born yesterday. There's a way to be proud in this, to project pride and celebrate a good win without like making the club seem tiny. They really failed at that. So hopefully there's a reset over there too, because it's been really poor showing on that side, on the communication side of the club too this year. But finally, 3-0 over Toronto. I missed this game. This was our final home game of the season. Did they do any fun fan appreciation stuff?
They were giving out Apple products at the stadium.
Well, like all the stuff that they took out of my Apple TV package from earlier this year. Did I ever talk about that on the show?
That you didn't get the
I got one of the media gift packages for Apple TV, but it was literally opened and duct taped shut, as if they had taken out the actually valuable stuff. So thanks MLS and Apple.
No,
also,
they're giving out nicer stuff. Than
I know they were.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say I'm still ranting about myself, and I know they were giving out nicer stuff to other people, but
they were giving out MacBook Pros.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Lanyards or something.
No, they were giving out MacBook Pros, AirPod Maxes.
wait, on the fucking concourse?
Just no, like as
Was it
like
like a lottery
at
thing,
like
or
in the
like-
stadium, like random giveaways. You know, like how they would do
Your
at-
ticket, yeah, or whatever.
Yeah, like
Number.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
like the
or
New
like
Jersey
they would
lottery.
No, they, like
type
they had the
thing.
stadium house go around and give away like Apple products.
How many?
Probably a few. I mean, I think
That's also a
free,
weird.
right?
That's also a weird thing to do in New York in the autumn of 2023. Is
Right.
to announce you're doing a big like laptop giveaway. Everybody come out.
It's like, hey, all the back to school leftovers.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, I mean, nice, I guess, but like also bizarre. Like, just giving people full-on MacBooks.
Yeah, I mean, like I think that was one of them. One guy got a MacBook, but you know, like some DJ Phil was giving out some AirPod Maxes apparently. So
Oh, how strange.
There's. I feel like there's so
nothing
many.
strange about DJ Phil.
I mean,
giving
there's.
out
I feel like there's so
headphones.
many like skipped steps between a normal RBA game and the presentation of that, and then like giving out MacBooks at a random game. I feel like there's a lot of gray area between that you have to cover first. Just everything's so disorienting about this team and this league these days. It's
Yeah,
so fucking
It
weird.
feels really like just a microcosm of the league in general. Like, like there's like about half as many people. There isn't no real feeling of stakes, but every once in a while you show up and they give you like $2,000 worth of free stuff instead of like, regular perks. Like, I'd be thrilled just to get a T-shirt. Like,
They were kicking the mini balls again this season.
was someone assaulted by one? Was someone viciously kicked?
Did somebody die from radiation poisoning within days?
No, I think they were throwing out T-shirts at one point. There were fireworks, obviously, which is apparently, I think, probably why the attendance was so good.
Oh, it was good?
It was like 20-something thousand for Toronto, yeah.
I mean, I guess it's the game of the season, so.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was just going to RBA for the last time this season. I left my cup there, and then I won't be back.
Oh, it's only valid for the season.
Sure.
How? You just forgot it.
No, I mean, I just left it because, it's like burying it with the season, kind of, to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not gonna try to refill it next year?
No, it's a new cup, a new year,
How many times did you wash that cup?
every week.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, yeah, you do wash your things.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
All right.
As soon as I get back, I put some dish soap in it and then wash it the next morning.
Yeah. I was planning on bringing my my Buck Showalter cup to Buck Night at City Field, but I forgot. And look what happened.
Damn.
This is a 3-0 win. This is also sort of the end of Michael Bradley's career. On this
With an
very,
exclamation point.
yeah, this very day of recording, Michael Bradley, or this week of recording,
No, it's today.
Michael
Yeah.
Bradley.
Today, Tuesday, October 16th. Where were you?
Yeah.
17th.
Where were you? Michael Bradley's career's kill. We were here. And who was it that killed it? Was it
Elias
Manuel?
Elias.
Elias
Elias
Manuel.
Manuel.
Elias Sports Bureau. Manuel. I did see some videos making the rounds of some old guys answering the question of like, when was the moment you, I think it was Gary Neville and Shearer talking about when the exact moment they knew they had to retire was. I wonder if Michael Bradley's known for a while, but I kind of think that this moment was at the top of his list
Yeah. If you're listening and can't quite remember the game, there was a moment in the first half where Bradley's Bradley's been doing this for Toronto for a while under it's basically the coaches have basically just been like his dad and his friends for the last like 5 years, so he's gotten to do whatever he's want. That's the thing. Michael Bradley's actually been living his nepo baby fantasy recently, as opposed to when he was with the national team under Bob. But it's a whole other thing. But anyway, for a while now, for most of the time he's been in Toronto, Bradley's main thing has been doing this thing where they split the center backs and he drops in underneath and starts the possessions. It's pretty wanky, to be honest, even though I like Michael Bradley, but pretty wanky thing to do when your dad and his friends are the coaches. But anyway, he always picks up the ball like super deep down the field between the center backs, and this time he did it like literally in his own penalty area, and Elias Manuel just came up and ganked him like it was nothing. Just like he was like just deer in the headlights, twisted in knots, and didn't end up being a goal, but it was still just kind of like a completely amateurish thing to see happen.
So wasn't it goal? What was the?
Yeah, it was.
Was it
Yeah.
goal?
That
Oh,
was the one
shit.
to Barlow. Yeah.
Oh shit! For some reason, I had it in my head that wasn't even one of the goals.
No, it was a classic
even
game.
more so then. Yeah, very,
Jungler coming out of
Yeah.
nowhere, killing the AD support. Yeah.
See, when he does that dropping in between the center backs, does he think he's like Busquets or something?
He thinks he's like Busquets or Pirlo or something. Yeah, which like, it seems pretty obvious that it was like a collaboratory thing where he's just like, yeah, you gotta let me do this.
You know who really thinks he thinks he's Dax McCarty in 2015.
That's
He would actually kind of do that.
Yeah, he would
a
do
little
that.
bit,
Yeah.
But like not when because nobody pressed back then,
Right,
so
right.
it was like a little different. But yeah, that is. I mean, it's a good opportunity to reflect on Michael Bradley. It is a interesting career, interesting bookmark.
Yeah, because I mean, that is the end of the chapter, that he is the last Metro star. He never played for Red Bulls. He left literally during that off season where the sale happened. But he was the last guy who was a New York, New Jersey Metro star who was still playing professionally. And yeah, it is kind of just like a full generation has come and gone since the Red Bulls have come to be. And also just kind of, it's always been a thing I've thought about with Bradley and with Josie Altidore. There's a name some of the older fans might remember. I guess Josie hasn't officially retired, but he's just not with the team right now. Anyway, both Bradley and Altidore, it's been kind of a weird thing for me the last few years that it's almost like completely forgotten that they started their careers here.
Yeah.
I mean, they had pretty conspicuous starts to their careers here, especially Josie, being 16 and scoring some of those golazos that he had early in his career. And it's
Record transfer.
Yeah, and like they've been back playing at RBA a lot the last several years, and there's not really any fanfare about that. Like there's a lot of hate and like booing at them, but it's more for like national team bullshit. Yeah, it's more for that kind of stuff. As opposed to feeling like it's anything about them being like traitors or having left the Metro Stars or Red Bulls or anything like that. It's just kind of like, speaks to that was a completely different club. That was a completely different time and place that nobody, even some of the older types around the club and the fan base, nobody really seems to think of that as a continuum.
No.
It's not the same thing now as it was in 2005, 2006. Obviously there's been some tangible stuff like the stadium, the arena, I should say, and just a lot of the nuts and bolts changes about MLS. But yeah, even beyond that, it's definitely a thing where maybe this is something that happens when you have kind of a thin, transient fan base and media base like this club has, that that kind of history and those sorts of threads do kind of get lost. And I think the club's in a healthier place if that's not happening, that's just sort of my kind of little take on what Bradley meant and what him retiring means. I think it is kind of an interesting little microcosm of things to think about.
Yeah, I think that there probably just has been a very large turnover in literal number of fans since that period too. Obviously, there are some people who've been around continuously, but I mean, even just people who are in the supporter section, I think has turned over massively. I mean, even in the time that we've been.
I mean, I was just going to say myself personally, like I started following during the last couple of Metro Stars years, but even with that, over the last 20 years or whatever, I've had several periods where I've fallen out of it entirely and had to come back. So
right.
And I think there's a lot of people who just never came back.
Yeah, and especially with COVID too. I mean, obviously
Right.
it's a big thing. I mean, I was going to say, even in the period that we've been following the scene more intensely, I think we've seen a decent turnover in the supporter section.
It's like enough time where you could say not only that, but like there was the recession that happened and like a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot about society has
Yeah.
fucking changed, obviously. So
Yeah. It's
I mean, shit. I mean, there literally weren't iPhones when Bradley left the MetroStars. So
I'm still struck by that one was it Getty photo that you used a couple times on Once a Metro, where it's like a photo for a waist support in like 2010 or 2011.
I want to say, I know what photo you're talking about, but I think it's even more recent than that. I want to say it's like 2014, 2015. And it's like the core nucleus of the South Ward and an away game. We don't recognize any of them.
No, and like our friends who are more involved in ESC and who would know that, we're also like, I have no idea who any of these people are.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even recognize these faces as people I see around the arena. Because, after being around this team for a decent amount of time, even if you don't talk to anyone else at the arena, you end up seeing faces you recognize.
Right.
And that takes me out every time. I'm like, who the fuck are these people? What is going on?
Where did they go?
Yeah.
It's...
Maybe they're in the background of the photos of Maggie Gyllenhaal and Chloe Sevigny at the
Target.
That's where I am. That's my personal shining overlook hotel. Is that about at the Target? Any way I can mention those photos, I will. But yeah, it's also interesting to think about the context of when Bradley and Altidore came back to the league. In 2017, it was this big deal, but like obviously it was the funny thing of two big American players coming back to the only non-American team, or one of the only non-American teams.
That was also very weird about Bradley's
Yeah.
homecoming, so to speak. But yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess like 2017, there was also like I was out.
It was 2014 actually when they came back.
Oh, 14.
Because remember the controversy was that they were coming back in the lead up to that World Cup,
Right.
and that was what turned the shots against them.
I was getting mixed up because 2017 was the big playoff series we had with them.
Right. Right.
Where that also like there was a lot of bad blood, and I was gone because I was in Puerto Rico that month, so I literally missed what the big hubbub was. But that always seemed a bit excessive to me. I don't know. But then it always stuck out to me of that like generation of guys coming home. Like Dempsey's career was kind of over. Altidore was like, it also made sense. Was stalling, but I wasn't paying the most attention. I know that maybe Bradley wasn't getting the most time, but he like had reached the height of his career. He was at
his peak, yeah.
And it kind of felt weird for him to come home, and he's getting paid. He was closer to home, but it's also wild to me that among that core group of TFC guys, he was the only guy that lasted this long. Josie eventually moved on. Giovinco moved on.
Vasquez.
Even like Drew Moore, or whatever, moved on. Bono didn't even stick around. Was he even their goalkeeper first? I don't know.
You know who did not move on is Jonathan Osorio.
That's actually wild.
And he's not very good.
Really? Has he fallen off?
He was injured for a while.
Was he?
Well, I mean, perfect kind of player who, like we describe a lot of Red Bulls players currently, where it's like, much better as a complementary player in a good team as opposed to like the main guy in a shitty one.
Yeah, he was just not doing it to that Toronto team at RBA that day.
Yeah. But it's also wild to me that Toronto's been bad for a few years, and Bradley's low-key been here for like 10 years, and been around for like 3 or 4 of these anonymous Toronto years. And I think it's maybe like a low-key or underrated contributor to this malaise that we've identified about the league. Because, obviously Toronto signed all these expensive Italian guys, and there was a bit of blanking going on about that. But the fact that it all fell apart so dramatically and actually I shouldn't say dramatically, it fell apart so comprehensively, but not dramatically, and no one's really I think is adding to the weird funk that we're seeing.
Right? To add to like my critique of just the league as a whole, like, that is a thing that like media figures should be making more hay out of, because it is interesting and it is, telling you the story of the league. Why are some of the worst teams that bad, especially when one of the worst teams is the most expensive team? Why is that not, more of a concern and more of a topic for people? Instead, we see, the few national writers around this league just wanking off about like transfers and awards and stuff instead of actually analyzing the league and the teams. And that's a perfect example of something to look into right there. And nobody's really looking into it. Mind you, kind of like Brit just hinted at, part of the reason I think people don't really look into that is because it would require them to reflect on the fact that when Toronto was signing all these Italian guys, everybody was jerking off about it and saying how great it was and how ambitious it was. And then when it doesn't work, nobody wants to examine that. So my latest soapbox in this episode over.
Yeah.
I had a really fun time watching Brendan Dusky get really mad the entire game. He was very mad in a very animated Italian kind of way.
This has been
Who could have predicted that?
an interesting cross section of different typical kind of team or typical opponents for us. For Chicago in the last 5 to 6 years has been a team that's been like weirdly a boogeyman for us, and that like there's been several times in different contexts where Chicago's come into our stadium, not played very well, but then we've just shot ourselves in the foot. Significantly in the 2018 season, that was the only game we lost at home, was at Chicago, that weird 2-0 game. A version of that happened this time. Then we had Cincinnati and the sort of being reminded of how much they hate us, even though we've been too busy to realize that. And now Toronto, I feel like their thing is that they get real mad constantly. Like furious. Them and like Orlando's center backs are always losing their goddamn mind. But also there's Chris Mavinga, rest in peace, but also really just be sending the most side eye at Chris Armas or whoever the coach was, and it's always a sight to see. So I'm glad that tradition has stayed strong on the Toronto FC side. Kenya scores 2 goals this match, feeding to our discussion from earlier that he's recovering a bit of his form. Is this the best you've looked all season? Or is it...
I mean, Toronto is so...
They were pretty bad.
Yeah, it's like, yes, but...
Also wearing ugly kits.
Yeah,
It
because...
was basically kit clashing because both kits were so busy and ugly, even though they were different colors. But,
Yeah.
But was it the best we've seen the Red Bulls? Yes. Was it the worst opponent I've seen in MLS history? Maybe.
They were pretty bad.
Yeah.
The defending was particularly lackadaisical and passive.
Yeah, especially after Bradley gave away the first goal, it was like, oh yeah, they're not going to play on anymore. They have nothing to play for.
Right.
Yeah, who is their manager? Oh, their manager's Terry Dunfield right now. That's a name.
Yeah. He's apparently lost all of his games as interim.
Yeah.
It's not been.
That's one guy who I feel like he's living the dream where by being Canadian and working in soccer, he just has a job for life doing something because they're gonna need a Canadian to be a soccer guy somewhere.
Yeah, it's like the Scottish guys who get to be millionaires because they have to fill SPL quotas.
Yeah. Only 41 years old. Well. All right. Well, anything else to say about this Toronto game? Sounds like it was a mess.
The season's back. We're back.
Weird.
Shield is back on.
Throughout all of this, I feel like our standings never changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny because after I was mentioning this after the Chicago one, but it felt like season's over for real. And then there's just so much leniency. There's just so much space when you're not competing. There's so much room for error.
And kind of on that note, I feel like it would be more useful as we start to close the episode out of not as much predicting or doing, going through the scenarios or whatever of how we're going to make 9th place, on decision day. I think it's more interesting to think about, especially in the context of some reports that have been made of thinking about, what's going to happen next year and what's going to happen in whenever the off season starts. And the main report that I just hinted at was surrounding the status of Troy Lesesne, which has been kind of unclear throughout this whole process. And now we finally get a little tidbit from Tom Bogert that Lesesne is kind of in pole position apparently to get the job permanently. So that's the most we have to chew on yet as the off season kind of comes closer. But I don't know. It's kind of a strange little kind of transition. It looks like we're about to go into whatever happens on Sunday.
Well, I look forward to Troy Lesesne calling Aiden Hazard to convince him to come out of retirement to play for the Red Bulls.
Maybe that's the spending they're going to do. We'll see.
Yeah, at this point last season, I think the paradigm we suggested, we were looking at like the last couple games leading into the playoffs when we didn't really have anything to play for because our situation was pretty much set. Was like, what is the best version of this team? That was our challenge to Garrett Struber, or what we would like to see answered by Garrett Struber at that time. Maybe we're viewing a similar version of that now, where it's like, what is, like, to Troy Lesesne, or to this Red Bull team, like, what is the core elements of this team you'd want to build out of into next year? And maybe it's a question that can't be answered because, one, Troy doesn't know if he's going to be around next year or not, so fair enough. But I do think that's the more interesting thing to keep an eye out for in this Nashville game, rather than, are we going to make it? Because we're either going to be like 8th, 9th, or like 10th, 12th. So like it's not, that aspect is not entertaining. And to that note, I will also say just all the quotes that turned out, I mean, I guess I'll take it easy on that for this one. Like, I guess they have to hype up like do or die thing going into this final game of the season at this point. But
yeah, it's not like the season will be redeemed.
Right.
They make 9th.
Yeah.
Brit, did you figure out points per game under Troy?
Oh, I did. I think let me open up my trusty calculator app. I mean, that is a good point, actually. So I think we have 30 points in 22 games here, right? Because when Garrett Struber was fired, was he fired? No, when Garrett Struber left, we had 9 points.
When he was escorted.
When he was promoted.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we actually had 31 points from 22 games. So we had 1.4 points a game. Not great, but...
Not including the run of form from Leagues Cup either.
Yeah, who could forget. Including Leagues Cup and Open Cup for that matter. So, we did have 9 points through 11 games to start the season. When I was reviewing these highlights again, I was looking at it, I was like, if I think about it and I say, let's take 1.4 points times 33 and say that would put us on 46 points about right now, which would have us firmly in 8th place. But we would have a playoff spot secured by now.
Sure.
Which I think helped me understand what quality of team we were looking at play the last couple months. We're this is an extremely mid to bad, but acceptably bad MLS team. It's that's maybe a contributor to the cognitive dissonance, is that you see us at the bottom of the table and we're pretty unremarkable, but we don't look like we're Toronto or Miami with Messi on the field, and a full season of Troy is probably about 46 to 50 points. That makes sense, but it is a useful reminder to think that even though Gerhard Struber was brutally effective at chipping away and destroying any sense of expectation around this club, it wasn't that long ago where that still existed. And we can still aim for that.
Yeah, also that's still not quite as high as I'd like.
No, it's not very good.
For the team, yeah, so... I think part of that...
I also don't think that, especially with Morgan ending up being out for the whole year,
right.
I don't think the squad was
that's what I mean.
Contending under any manager this year.
Well, that's what I mean, too. It's I think, wonder what happens with the better quality of squad, but also, that's we're needing to find like 20 points or something like that from that. So that's still a lot. That's still a lot. A lot of quality to be found.
Well, are you looking forward to this? I don't know how to sign it off, by the way.
For decision day?
Decision day.
Oh,
How many
man.
decisions are being made on decision day?
Not for DC. DC's decided.
We could finish above City still. That's the big thing. City needs to
Lose.
Saint City Hams Day.
City needs to win.
Oh, I mean, like for us, like they should just lose to Chicago or draw.
Yeah, if we draw.
This stuff's for nerds. We're just supposed to win, and then the chips fall where they are.
Yeah, basically they have to win, which has been struggling. So we
Right.
can at least laugh at their misfortune.
Hopefully.
They're diverting all of their resources to their land use lawyers right now, so we understand. But yeah, I don't think any other decisions are being made. So with that, Saturday, October 21st. Oh, that is this Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. It's been
yeah.
All right, let's go.
It's Alex!